In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make these beautiful ear warmers or headbands, and this is one that I made for my daughter, and my daughter is 8 years old, so you can get a rough idea of the size. I will however leave a link in the description box with all of the average child and adult head sizes so that you can get a rough idea of how big you would need to make it for whoever you wanted to make it for. Obviously every child and adult is different, but it will just give you a rough idea of how big you will need to make it. But the one I'm going to do in the video will just be exactly the same as the one that I have done here, just to add to my daughter's collection. But yeah, all of the sizing information will be in the description box. So I'm going to be using Paintbox Chunky for mine. I really like using chunky yarns obviously for winter items, but you can use any yarn that you like, whether it be a normal DK yarn or even a super chunky yarn. You can use whatever you want and obviously just follow the rough measurement guide down below. So Paintbox Chunky is an absolutely beautiful yarn to work with. It's wonderfully soft and it comes in so many amazing colours. So make sure you check out the link in the description box to find out where you can buy this yarn from. But for now, and for anybody that is wondering, this shade is number 352. So obviously because I'm using a chunky yarn, my stitch count will be slightly different for if you were using any other size. So I'm just going to bring this one back for just a minute, and we are going to be chaining at this point the width of the headband, so the cross going across here. So again, this will vary depending on who you're making it for. This is about 3.5 inches in width, and as I say, that is for an 8-year-old, and then obviously slightly narrower for if you were doing a baby, maybe only 2.5 inches for a baby. But you know, if the child is with you, give them a quick measure. But if not, just go with it. So yeah, you're chaining the width, not the length. So I'm using the seed stitch for this because I think it gives a really beautiful texture and a really nice, warm, close closed stitch. So you want to do an odd number of chains for this. So yarn over and pull through. That's 1, 2, 3, and so on. So just do any odd number of chains for the width of your ear warmer. So just for my example, I have done a chain of 13, and that is with a chunky yarn and a 6mm hook. So that's 13. So to do the seed stitch, we want to work into the second chain back from the hook. So you don't count the one on your hook, obviously, and you go 1 and 2. And you're going to do a UK double crochet into that second chain. So insert your hook, yarn over and pull up. You'll have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both. So UK double, US single. Into the next stitch, you want to do a treble. So UK treble, yarn over, insert into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up. You'll have 3 loops on your hook this time. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So you've got 2 loops left. Yarn over, pull through the final 2 loops. So that is a UK treble, US double. And then we're just going to alternate all the way along between those 2 stitches. So into the next stitch, you will do a double. So yarn over and pull through both. And into the next, you'll do a treble. So yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And then you're back to your double. So insert, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2. So you're just going to alternate between those 2 stitches all the way along your foundation row. And obviously because it's only quite a short row, I will just stick with you for this bit. So when we move on to row 2 in just a minute, that is the row that you're going to repeat over and over again. So I picked a really simple stitch for this one so that it can be really good for, you know, ones of you that are just starting out. So your final stitch just before your slip knot should be a treble. So your very last stitch should be a treble. So that is how your first row should look. It should just be a little lumpy bumpy. So to move on to this repeat now, you're going to turn your work. You're not going to chain, you're just going to turn. And then this very first stitch where we are at, so this very first stitch just here, we are going to work a double crochet. So you're literally going to just mind that little working end out of the way and into that very first stitch. Make sure you've got the whole of the stitch, so you should have the little V across the top here. Yarn over and pull up, your 2 loops, yarn over and pull through both. So that is your first stitch of this row. And again, now we're just going to start alternating between the stitches, and in theory you should be doing your treble into the top of your double from the last row. So this next stitch is a double crochet, and into there you're going to do a treble, and then into the next you should be doing a double, and the next should be a treble on top of a double again, and then again double onto the top of what should be the treble from the last row, and you're just going to work that all the way along, double and the treble. So these should be the opposites on top of each other. And you're just going to work that all the way along. So again, I'll stick with you because they're only nice short rows. And then as you get towards the end of the row, so I've just done a treble on top of this double. I now need to do a double on top of this treble from the previous row. This is where it starts to get a little bit funny just on this first row. And then you can see here we've got this funny little sticky out bit, and that is a double from the previous row. So we need to make sure that we work into this very final stitch here, because in theory you should always end on the treble. So just make sure you catch that funny little stitch. And that is it. That is the row that you're going to repeat over and over again now until it is the length that you need it to be. So as I say, for my 8-year-old daughter, I'm going to do it roughly 17.5 to 18 inches. But again, obviously, just refer to the little chart down below. And try not to go over what they estimate, because we are actually going to be making a few extra stitches on the end once we get to the point. So maybe just stop half an inch shy of what it recommends, because like I say, we'll be adding some chain stitches which will create slightly more length. So just go maybe half an inch under what it suggests. But if you just repeat that row now over and over again until it gets to the length that you need it to be, and that is where I will meet you in just a second. Okay, so I've done all of the rows that I think I need to do now, and as I say, I've stopped half an inch or so short of the recommended average head circumference, because we aren't actually going to be joining these two ends right together like this. There is actually going to be a slight gap, so obviously that will all add to the length in itself. So now if I just turn this over for a moment so that you can see it a little bit better, obviously when we do a headband and we want to add detailing in to turn it into the bow shape like you saw before, you squidge in the middle to obviously bring it all in, but then you do end up with this big bulky bit, and when you've got that sitting against your head all the time, it's not necessarily the most comfortable way. Even if you really do it neatly, it is still quite a bulky bit. So to stop that from happening, what I like to do is, so obviously I've got this laid out in front of me now, and I'm going to just bring the other end to meet this end here. So obviously this is where my working end is, so that I'm ready to work back across to this side as we normally would. And as I say, instead of just joining these two ends together, we're going to do something a little bit different, just so that we can find a way of narrowing the amount of material that we have to make it sit a little nicer on the head. So you want to do a chain 3, so 1, 2 and 3. And now on the opposite side, so on the other end, just where you've got your slip knot, you will have obviously a chain. So into that space we're going to slip stitch. So on the opposite side we're just going to slip stitch, and we're going to do that by yarning over and pull through that loop and also the loop on the hook. Oops. So that has got a straight line now from one end to the other. Oops, my tail's getting in the way there. You're then going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to come back across to the nearest side to us, but we're not going to go backwards and forwards all in straight lines. We're actually going to do a little zigzag. So you're going to miss a couple of stitches on this side. So I'm going to miss 1, 2, and into the third stitch along here I'm going to insert my hook and I'm going to slip stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. Again, chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and on the back bit now, obviously you've got your very first chain space that we slip stitched into a moment ago. So I'm going to miss 1, 2, 3, 4, and into this fifth one I'm going to slip stitch. Again, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're again going to miss some stitches, so it doesn't have to be an exact science, so just miss a couple of stitches on this side and slip stitch. And you're just going to work your way across doing that. So chain 3 and have a little look. So obviously you can see they're working into a zigzag now. Have a little look and miss some stitches, and we're going to slip stitch on this side, chain 3, again miss some stitches and slip stitch, and then as you get towards the end, so this will be the one now that will take me to my corner on this side, so I'm going to slip stitch into that very corner space. Oops, my yarn's got the wrong way around there. There we go. So I'm going to slip stitch into there, but you want to have a straight edge on both ends. So like we've got a straight on this one here, you also want to have a straight one to finish off. So we're going to chain 3 now, and we're going to slip stitch into the corner of this one as well. So we'll have a nice straight line at that point. So slip stitch, and then I've finished with this bit now, so I'm actually going to snip off. So do a little chain 1, and leave a little bit of a tail because we're going to use that to tie some knots with in just a minute, and then just pull that out and tighten up. So that is how you should be looking. You should be looking like a little ballet slipper almost, and you'll have your two ends from where we started from and where we finished from. And so at this point now we want to bring this in. So you can see, because we've got just basic chains here, when we cinch this together, the amount of material that is actually sitting against your head is very small, and so you don't get all of the bulk, and obviously you can even these little bits out in a minute once we've finished off, but that is how you should be able to pull it together. And so while you're doing that, using your two tail ends, just cross them over and wrap them around that middle part and bring them back up and just knot them together. And you don't need to do this really tightly because you don't necessarily want it to go really, really small at this point, but just knot them together and that will just pull in that little bit for you. And you can obviously hide those tails in just a minute. So now we're just going to make the little bit that is just going to sit around to pull all these bits together and neaten it up. But as you can see, it's already looking really beautiful. So for this final bit now, it's nice and simple, nice and quick. You just want to obviously create a slip knot and you just want to make a chain. So you can chain as many as you like, we're just literally going to make a little strip of crochet to wrap around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm doing a chain of 6, and then we're just going to do a row of UK double back along, so into the second chain from the hook. So this chain just here, you're going to do a double, so yarn over and pull up and do your double, and again into the next one and the next, and you're going to just do that all the way along, which obviously won't take very long because you'll only be doing a few stitches. And then turn. Now you can always do this in a contrasting colour if you like, that would actually give a really nice effect. I've made a Christmas one which is all red, and then you've got the white which is the bit that wraps around, and that looks really nice and festive. So I've turned, and then in the same way as before, into this very first stitch just here, insert your hook and yarn over and pull up and do your double. That's 1, 2, whoops, 3, and turn. And you're just going to do probably 6 or 7 rows of UK doubles until it is long enough to wrap around. So obviously I'll just whip up a few more rows and then we'll see where we are at. So this bit shouldn't take too long at all, really. So I've done 7 rows here, so I'm literally just going to pop this round and see whether it is long enough. This, to be honest, probably would have been easier for you if I had done it in a separate colour. But no, that's 7 rows for me was long enough. But obviously it will depend on how many rows, on how wide you had to make your ear warmer. Obviously if you've only done a baby size one, it will be probably a little bit narrower than this, and so you won't need as many rows as I've got. So I'm ready to snip off, and I've just got my little rectangle here. So I've left a bit of a tail, obviously ready for sewing together. But what I'm actually going to do is just sew in my starting tail first of all. Just going to weave that along. Snip that off. And I'm also going to weave in these 2 tails on the band itself. And you don't necessarily have to be massively precise about this bit, because obviously these will be covered with the band when we sew that on in a second. So that's how we're looking at the moment, and obviously going to attach this bit now. I'm going to thread up, and I'm going to turn this the wrong way, if you like, and then obviously put the flat bit, the middle bit on the other side, and then pull your 2 ends together so that they meet on this back side. And I'm literally just going to thread backwards and forwards through those stitches, pulling it together. And it's literally 30-second job, this one. It's quite a nice, quite a quick one. So just catch those last few stitches there. And just manhandle it a little bit at that point just to make sure it's where you want it to be. And then it's just a case of weaving in your final tail. So I told you this bit's nice and quick. And snip off. And then turn it back around the right way again. And at this point, obviously, you can just fold these edge bits to get them to lay exactly how you want. Pinch them in the middle and then turn your edges so that it's nice and neat. But there you have your finished ear warmer. So I really do hope that you were able to follow along with that and make something absolutely beautiful. I'm going to set up a little Instagram hashtag, so anybody that does make them, please do show me, and maybe even have them on your little models as well. I love to see that. And using the hashtag, so I'm going to do something simple, so just use the hashtag Blossom Ear Warmer and let me know what you create. I can't wait to see all your colour schemes and things. But please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and remember to subscribe so that you can keep up to date with all of my weekly tutorials. But that is it for this one, and I hope that you make some beautiful cozy ear warmers. But thanks as always for watching, and I will see you again next week.